All right, folks, this is Sultan, and a lot of people have been sending me messages and they sent me clips of Apostate Aladdin's critique of our very own, the Apostate Prophet. So initially, I tried to ignore it because it's got nothing to do with me per se, but then because people are interested in my opinion and because I am also being put in this pro-Israel camp, and I also know some things about Apostate Aladdin. I think he has a very different type of personality, which is fine. And I know for a fact that he never liked AP. And I think he doesn't like me either. And probably my stance on this whole Israel-Palestine issue would not help my case. So I thought I'll just give my opinion on the whole issue. So Apostate Aladdin, I think when he first burst onto the scene, like many new ex-Muslim activists, whenever they come out, I try to support, I try to encourage everyone, but he never interacted with me, so I never really got to know him. Infidel Noodle, on the other hand, like I've spoken to her so many times, and I know Infidel Noodle is close to Apostate Aladdin and Yasmin Muhammad, who I don't have a good history with, because how she doxed or how she leaked Zara K's information, which endangered her life while she was incarcerated in Tanzania. So before I dive into Apostate Aladdin's critique of Apostate Prophet, I'll just say that there is this mindset amongst ex-Muslims, and not just only ex-Muslims. I think it's fairly common in all groups of people, and like other groups of people, we are a conglomerate of different minds, therefore we have differing opinions, and it should be okay. That just shows the diversity that can be found in our community as well. I personally don't see myself as a representative of any community. I only speak my own mind. There is this mindset that exists in ex-Muslims as well, where people have this ability to just attack or critique people of their own ilk or tribe, so to speak. I think they do that just to appear fair to their opponents, i.e. Muslims in this case. I have been a victim of that so many times. One such example is Reason on Faith, Suhail Ahmed, which I don't know what makes them do this. I think, again, the biggest motivation behind that would be to appear fair, to appear that, hey, look, I'm a man of integrity. I'll be the judge and I'll say that, oh, Harris was unfair in that so-and-so interaction with so-and-so Muslim apologist. People do that. It's their mindset where if I accuse you of certain traits, then I am absolving myself of those accusations. And so many other ex-Muslims have done that to me as well. I guess my point is that you should be smarter than that. You should understand the consequences of your rebuke of an ex-Muslim publicly, especially if your profile is lower than that ex-Muslim. Because yeah, you made your point. Look at me, how fair I am. I would criticize anyone. And sometimes you actually go overboard. As I said in that Jawad Hashmi conversation that I had with him, I think that criticism by Suhail Ahmed of me was totally out of line. There was absolutely no truth to that. And I think Suhail could not even see that because he was so immersed in his own self-righteousness and in his own ego or in his own effort to appear so fair. He couldn't even see that. He couldn't even critique me fairly. Normally, people give the benefit of the doubt to their own people. But because these guys have this peculiar mindset, they end up being harsher towards people they're supposed to be friends of. So I think this is my general criticism of these voices. There is a way to criticize someone. If you're unhappy with something, first you should try to do that privately, because strategically it's very stupid. Because those people, yeah, they might say, yeah, you're so fair. They might even say that just to get more rebuke out of you, of other ex-Muslim activists. They might do that, but they're never going to be fair to you when it comes to Islam, when it comes to your safety and well-being. Apostate Aladdin, if you ever got arrested in a Middle Eastern country for your activism, then who's going to come out for your defense? Those Muslims that you're trying to appease? Yeah, Apostate Aladdin is so fair because he stood by us in the Israeli-Palestinian issue. No, they wouldn't even see that, because they would say, oh, well, you did condemn Hamas. You do support Israel's right to exist. Therefore, we're going to put you in prison. You know who's going to come out in your defense? We will. And if you keep going the way you're going, we probably wouldn't. It's just human nature. I think I still would. When Zara K was arrested in Tanzania, she's a wonderful girl. She's had the best relationship with everyone. And I'm sure she doesn't agree with me or Amin Nawabi on so many issues. But when she was arrested in Tanzania, we all galvanized all ex-Muslim voices. We gathered all Australian journalists and we tried our absolute best to get her out, and we did get her out. So you should look into these things strategically. Yes, you may not like us, but be a little bit strategically smarter. But I think you're new to this. You're probably going to evolve through it. As somebody commented underneath your video that, you know, in a couple of years' time, you'll be hardened by your experiences as well. There would be some other issues. Unless, I don't know, you're made out of stone. So, I don't know. I don't truly know your personality, but this is exactly what happens to people who do this day in, day out for many years. It's a self-congratulatory position. I don't think it serves them as well as they think that it would. For example, when I spoke with Jawad Hashmi, I think I was very mellow, at least in the first part of that conversation. And Jawad Hashmi is a very aggressive person, and he kept attacking me. He kept putting me down. I tolerated as much as I could, but then eventually I think I kind of got off the rails, which is fine. I welcome all of you to go and watch that conversation, and without picking a side, just have a look at who was being more hawkish, who was being more rude. And maybe I'm biased towards myself. I personally think that Jawad Hashmi was much ruder than I was, or at least he started it. But regardless of that, I think I'm willing to accept someone saying that, well, you were both as bad as each other. But then Suhail Ahmed publicly denounced me and said, yeah, I think Jawad Hashmi was much more politer, and I think Haras was a bit unfair, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why do you people do this? Why do you embarrass your supposed friends publicly? Because your tweet might have gotten, what, 500 views or 1,000 views. Did you get any medal from your ideological opponents? No. You might say, well, that's not what I'm hoping for. Well, then why are you doing this? Oh, because I want to show that, you know what, I'm very fair. Yeah, so maybe you're just feeding your own self-righteous ego. But in the process, what happens is that people who know me, because I have a much bigger profile, people throw that in my face to humiliate me. And I have to pick up the tab. What Muslims say, they say, look at this, your own people are condemning you. The same thing happened with Daniel Hakikachu. Now, I'm not saying you have to agree with everything I say, but if you really have a problem with something that I say publicly, if you think that you're my friend, if you think you're on my side, message me privately. I may not change my opinion, but inadvertently, it actually keeps me in check. I'll give you an example. In the Urdu sphere, I critique Islam. I don't do that as often as I used to, but I critique Islam. And there are a lot of mainstream, big-time Muslim scholars and apologists who speak to me privately, and some have spoken to me publicly as well. But then when other Muslims attack those clerics and they say, hey, why do you talk to Haras Sultan? He's such a blasphemer, he's so rude, blah, blah, blah. And then those clerics say that, oh no, actually Haras is not that bad. He's okay. There are other ones who are much worse. Yes, I'm always pushing the boundary. I'm always saying things because I also want to normalize blasphemy. But I don't cross that line in the sand that is always moving, and we're always trying to push it, and then there's always a pushback from the other side. But despite all of that, I have this quiet conversation with myself. I say, okay, I should not really go too far, because then these people who converse with me privately and sometimes they defend me publicly, I should not put them in a position where they would say, yeah, okay, you know what, Haras is a loose cannon, so we can't really defend him. And that actually breaks down my relationship with them. So if you form these relationships, and especially if you have those relationships with me, for example, Suhail Ahmed, I'm sorry, Suhail, I'm using you as an example, but there are a couple more too, but I just thought of you as an example. And I hope you learned a lesson, but I don't think you have, because you tweeted about Apostate Aladdin'S video and saying, well, there's a new thought leadership or something. There's no thought leadership. There's no new guard. It just represents the diversity of thought within the ex-Muslim community. Neither AP, nor me, nor Amin Nawabi, none of us proclaim to be the sole voice of the ex-Muslim community. We understand there's so many ex-Muslims who agree with us, and there's so many ex-Muslims who don't agree with us. So these people, in my opinion, in order to appear fair, in order to get some sort of a medal from their ideological opponent, they throw their own friends under the bus, when what they should do is approach them privately. I'm not saying if Apostate Aladdin had approached AP, he would have changed his opinion, but that definitely would have put him under some sort of pressure to keep his critique of Palestine or pro-Palestine people in check. As I said, it does that to me. When I speak with Muslim clerics, I am under some sort of pressure where I say, okay, I'm not going to go that far. So that's just a general overview. Whether Apostate Aladdin is suffering from that syndrome, I can't be fully certain, but I can definitely say that there is some truth to that as well. But I think you're interested in getting a medal from other people that, hey, look how self-righteous and how fair and how empathetic you are. When you should actually understand that as you are accusing Apostate Prophet of lacking empathy when discussing Palestinian people, other people can accuse you of not empathizing with Israel. Other people can also say, as you rightly pointed out, people do say once a Muslim, always a Muslim. You have left Islam, but Islam hasn't left you. You can't please everyone. But I think Apostate Aladdin is definitely suffering from this mentality where he's constantly trying to appease the other side. He's trying to tell them that, hey, look, I'm so nice. Listen to me. These ex-Muslims, they're so bad. I'm not like them. I'm the nice one. Let's see how far that takes you. I can understand Apostate Aladdin probably does have a different type of personality. He probably is a bit more mellowed down, a much more politer version, a politer face of ex-Muslims. And that's fine. That's just a part of his personality. He is always trying to tell people that, hey, look, come and have a chat with me. I'm nice, I'm polite, I'm not going to offend you. And that's fine. And he doesn't like our approach because we may come across as too abrupt, too forward, and maybe insensitive at times. And that's fine as well. I find Apostate Aladdin's version of activism or his style of communication very boring, frankly. I find it very nauseating. I find it very sleep-inducing, coma-inducing at times. I have never watched his videos. I gave it a chance at the start, but I found it, I'm sorry, very boring. And that's okay, because that's his way of communication and that's our way of communication. One personality trait he has is, how do I say this without being too rude? He has a mask on his face. He's still worried for his safety, whereas I live in Australia. I have never hidden my face. I show my face. Does that make me a bit more forward? Does that make me a bit more brazen? Yes, that's a part of my personality. Whereas his personality type is to be a bit more cautious, don't step on anyone's toes, be ultra nice to other people, but then you are also shooting your own soldiers in the process. And you don't care about that. So anyway, that's just my critique of Apostate Aladdin. But then on the other hand, do I think that every comment that he made about Apostate Prophet was entirely false? I think he made some really good points. I think we, as people who are trying to empathize with the Israeli side, should also be mindful that being public speakers, we should show some empathy. I think, in my opinion, I have shown immense empathy towards the plight of Palestinian people. I have been very hawkish towards this Muslim diaspora that is constantly egging Palestinian people to keep sacrificing their kids so we can fulfill our Islamic fetish. Does it look like that Apostate Prophet at times appear insensitive? I'm sure he does. And I've been accused of that too. Even though, as I said, I've done my best. I have never criticized the people of Gaza. I have tried my utmost best to show the dissenting voices of Gaza. I've shown that survey many times where 37% of Gazans were not happy with Hamas's actions on October 7th. I invited a pro-Palestine activist, Ahmad AlKhatib, brilliant guy, brilliant interview, do check it out. And I've been trying my best to empathize with Palestinian people as well. Now, we do also have a very strong position. We are very anti-Hamas. We do believe that Israel has a right to exist. We do believe Israel has a right to defend itself. And then in the process, I do believe that Israel does do a very good job in trying to minimize civilian casualties. When people throw these sweeping statements like genocide, you lose people like me. I'm not interested in that. I'll just give you one example. I think 70% of buildings in Gaza have been totally demolished. That means nearly 70% of Gaza's population lived in those buildings. That means around 1.5 million people. That means that 1.5 million people would have been given advance warning that the IDF is going to bomb these buildings, so get out of there. Otherwise, there would have been 1.5 million civilian casualties, or at least 700,000 or whatever. But we've only had 30,000 civilian casualties. Now, this may sound insensitive, as though I'm saying that 30,000 casualties is nothing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm highlighting a point that it appears that the IDF does its utmost best, despite knowing that Hamas wants to maximize Gazan casualties because it furthers their agenda, it puts pressure on the IDF, and that way they can probably reach the ceasefire that they want. So given the circumstances, in an area as densely populated as Gaza, 30,000 casualties out of 2.2 million people is not genocide. Every casualty is too much. But then when you emotionalize the argument and you say, well, Israel is all bad, Israel just out there for Palestinian blood, and we should have a ceasefire, that's it. I've said it numerous times, I just can't buy it. I can't imagine Australia getting attacked by any country and killing 1,200 of our civilians, and Australia does not galvanize its Western allies to go after that enemy. I just cannot imagine that. No country would allow that. Yes, you can say that, okay, there's a history of 75 years of oppression. Okay, I did this, and now that's going to be used against me. When you say that there is a history of 75 years of occupation or oppression, then you are somehow making excuses for Hamas's actions on October 7th. That's what you're doing. But anyway, I think I'm rambling on now. I would hope that Apostate Aladdin actually critiques my position as well. And I know that he has a position on this matter, which is perfectly fine. There's so many of my ex-Muslim friends who have a position that is opposite to mine, and the neither side can convince the other side. I think that's how us as humans operate. We look at certain realities, we interpret them, we process them in our minds in our own ways, and then we form an opinion. I hope that I don't get accused of not empathizing with Palestinian people, because I think I do. I have empathized with them. I have tweeted a lot on this topic. You can't find any tweet where I'm making fun of Palestinian people or I'm even criticizing them. But one thing that you can accuse me of, and I wear that as a badge of honor, that I've been very hawkish, I've been very critical towards this Muslim diaspora, especially people coming from my nationality, Pakistan or Bangladesh or India, who are constantly egging Palestinian people to keep sacrificing their children so they can fulfill their Islamic fetish of conquering Jerusalem. You cannot tell me that this has got nothing to do with Islam. I think Apostate Aladdin acknowledges that as well. My argument is that these people who are living outside of Palestine, who are not Palestinian themselves, those people are less interested in the suffering of Palestinian people. They are more interested in capturing Jerusalem to fulfill their Islamic fetish. And we keep giving this argument over and over again, and I haven't heard a satisfactory response from the other side, that if they cared about the suffering of Palestinian people, i.e. fellow Muslims or even fellow humans, they would have made a lot more noise when 500,000 people were killed in Syria by Bashar and Putin, and 300,000 people killed in Yemen by the Saudis. We did not hear a peep from anyone, because as I said, it's got less to do with Palestinian lives and more to do with the Islamic fetish. To conclude, I think Apostate Aladdin's critique might be fair to a lot of people, and I think it's important for us to be kept in check, but I think it would have been better done had he reached out to him privately. To me now, it seems like he used this as an opportunity to show to the world that, hey, look how fair I am. But let me tell you from experience, you're not going to get any brownie points from Muslims. Let me tell you, you're not going to be able to take off your mask. You would still be an endangered species. And no matter how much you try to appease them, even though you might not be able to see that because that's just a part of your personality, you're a very mellow kind of character. But you can't tame people like us. We like to grab the bull by its horns. We can be very hawkish, but not towards Palestinian people. We should show empathy towards Palestinian people. And I think Ahmed Nawabi shows empathy towards Palestinian people as well. But it'd be interesting to see what you have to say about my position. But you don't have to do it. I think you may not have anything to critique me on, because I think my position is very just. Okay, I hope you liked today's video. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And you can be my patron by going to patreon.com/Sultan, or you can buy me a coffee on this link below. Until next time, ta-ra. If you'd like to support my work, you can become my patron by going to patreon.com/Sultan, or you can simply buy me a coffee.